one of the questions that I ask is about success, and in particular, the measure of success. And I ask him, and he's quite a successful guy, like very different from the person that I am, very different from the environment in which I exist. And I ask him, what is the measure of success? And he says, the measure of success is the quality and the quantity of the free time that you have. And this really made me think. And
welcome everyone to the Europreneur Podcast, where I get the chance, the opportunity, the privilege to interview some of the best entrepreneurs in Europe, members of the Entrepreneurs Organization. And today, straight out from Sofia, Bulgaria, I have Ivan, and let's take it. Do you want to do a quick elevator pitch so people get to know who you are a little bit?
Yeah, man, of course. Thank you for the nice intro. My name is Ivan. I am one of the founding members of EO in Southeast Europe, which is the only chapter, as far as I'm aware, that comprises of. We started 3 countries, but we're 2 countries now, so Bulgaria and Romania. At some point of time, we will become separate chapters, but for now, we are unique. So yeah, that's me. I've been with EO for, I don't know, man, time flies, like 4 or 5 years now. But like this experience has been so transformational for me. Like they say, Buddha says that when the student is ready, the teacher comes himself. So with me, like in my experience with EO was something exactly of that sort. I was looking for opportunities to grow, looking for a community that would enable me to grow. And suddenly it was given to me at the very exact moment. And then when I was put in this environment of competitive, but at the same time, people that are so willing to realize their potential, this like really helped me grow. So when I joined my company, which to this name is named BGO Software, we were more of a like IT outsourcing company. But over the years and the experience and energy that like EO gave me, I and my partner as well, we decided to transform our company into a digital health lab. So we
Health lab.
Yes, exactly, digital health lab. So pretty much what we do is we turn healthcare and technology experience into a premium service, which allows our customers to have their products developed by a company that's focused on digital health. And this is it in a nutshell. Yes, thank you.
Wait, how did you end up in IT? You're a developer?
No, I'm not. I'm purely business. I graduated from the American University in Bulgaria here, and I did politics and business. And my cheesy punchline is here because all politics is business and all business is politics. So no IT. God forbid, man. I would be an awful developer.
What was your first job?
My first job? A long time ago. I mean, I was 11 when I was selling newspapers over the weekends. And that was fun. My mom was giving me, like $50. I go and I was like a little like chubby kid with blue eyes. And that was a fairly easy job, like I would go and just buy newspapers and just walk around the center of the city and ask people whether they would like to buy the latest edition of the local newspaper. And I think 80% of them were like, I don't read that newspaper, but just because you got out and, like are coming and approaching me, I'm just going to get it. So I was turning like $50 into like $150 in 3 hours. I was going home. So that was my first job.
That's the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey. How was Sofia, Bulgaria in those days?
Well, it was like a post-communist country. So it was, I don't know how to describe it. I mean, if you have lived in a communist country, like you can only understand how like a country like that is. It was capitalism at its genesis kind of thing, but at the same time, some of the positive sides of communism were present. It was relatively safe. It was times of hope. It was different than anything that was like virtually like 4 or 5 years ago. So interesting times. I don't remember too well those times, but like I
You
was blessed to be. My parents, both of them, are doctors, so I was blessed to have grown in a more or less safe environment, which is something that I want to give back to society in a way. Those people nowadays.
correct me if I'm wrong, but you
Mm.
seem like a very good salesperson.
Thank you. I get that a lot, honestly speaking, which is a negative as well because people do perceive me as a salesperson a lot. And by default, they expect me to sell them something. So I'm trying to navigate through that journey and, add some more on my personality so that I'm not being perceived as a salesperson only, but as someone who is giving first and then taking, not taking,
The
but
reason
then receiving.
the reason why I'm allowing myself to say that, by the way, is I consider myself a very good salesman.
You
And
are,
I
yes.
think and I think it has something to do with the way we make others feel,
Yeah.
but we get the same vibe from other people. So it's not necessarily being pushy, or sometimes it's not even selling, but it's offering us. I know that if I can offer you something that you need, you will buy it from me. I just need to understand what it is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes I find that in a good way. A quick question. When you started your journey, you finished college, and then what was your job? What did you think would be your path?
Right. I always knew that I would be working for myself. I didn't know how, I didn't know in which industry. I just knew that I will not have a boss because before I graduated from university, I've been fired like 4 or 5 times from different jobs that I had. I was working like a bartender. I mean, most of the jobs that I was doing were customer facing, right? Bartender, waiter, selling newspapers and stuff. So before I joined, I was noticing that before I graduated university, I was noticing that the internet thing is something that's growing, and it really like felt like that this is the future. So I knew in a way that I will develop in this industry. And then the first job that I started after university was in a company, like it was like an American company. They had an office in Bulgaria, and I was in the sales team, naturally, you know. And I quickly noticed that our company was charging $2,000 to $3,000 for like 2 3 page static pages websites. I was like, well, that's easy. I mean, we developed this website in a day. Like it takes like a designer and a developer to hard code websites. Back in the days, like websites were hard coded, right? Like written in HTML and CSS, PHP. Take a day to develop something which we sell for like 2 3 grand. I want to tap into this. I want a piece of that cake. And this is how I started in the IT industry. Like 3 months after graduation, I registered my first company virtually.
How did that go?
Well, thank God it didn't go too well because I started working. My plan was I will subcontract a designer and a developer. I'm gonna sell a customer a website, and then I'm gonna pay them and keep the rest. Pretty much be the middleman. But early in my career, did I understand that the fact that somebody can design or develop doesn't mean that those two people can produce something valuable, something that the customer is willing to pay for, right? And they developed a website for my business, which was terrible. And I've had many cases in which I would call a customer. He was like, "Yeah, sure, let me check your website." He's like, "Man, but that website sucks. Why would I pay you like to develop a website for me when your website looks that bad?" So that killed the vibe to a certain extent. However, through my personality and personal connections, I managed to find a client that actually like we developed the website for them, and he was supporting me for. I mean, this stream of business was supporting my lifestyle, which was rather modest at that time, for like 5 6 months. But I was planning to extend that. But my mom, which I love so much, and she has contributed significantly to my personality and my well-being in general. She didn't want to accept that I'm going to start working for myself right off university, which actually makes a lot of sense, when you think about it. Like you need to learn stuff before you start, like putting bread on the table with those skills. And she was trying and trying and trying to convince me to stop being an entrepreneur and go work for someone, which doesn't make sense, like for people like us, right? And then some point of time, like not having any other options left, she was like, I'm gonna bribe you, and if you start a job, I'm gonna give you cash. And I was like, Mom, like, thanks, but I'm doing fine. I'm surviving, paying my own bills, being on my own, being all grown up now. However, I had to change at some point of time. I had to change my flat. I was renting a flat in a miserable neighborhood of Sofia, actually, at that time. So we had to switch places, and I need money for deposit, and we had to pay some bills. So I didn't have enough cash, and my only option to do that move was to get my mom's bribe, sort of. And that's why I looked for a job, just to get the bribe, like work, hustle on my own, part time, and then a few months later to get back to working for myself. And the company that I started working for was the company where I met my wife and my partner.
Love that story. So basically, what I'm hearing is take bribe from your mother or listen to your mother. And secondly,
one of both,
what,
at
what,
least.
what,
Yeah, do listen to your moms. This is. I think if I can pass one message to my son before he grows up, is that if I listened to my parents more in my earliest times, I would have had such a head start. And like this revolt of the personality when somebody grows up and like feels that urge to do exactly the opposite of what your parents tell you. I think that it's a sign of wisdom to get to the point as quick as possible to listening to the elderly, and actually take that advice, think about it, and decide whether to apply it or not, and not just refuse it immediately after you receive it.
interesting.
Mm.
I feel that my parents had a mixture between play it safe and follow your heart. And I
Right.
think that my dad was more like, you need a job, you need safety, don't get into any dangerous adventures. But when I did get into bad adventures and lost money and we had issues, they got my back.
Yeah.
So, and they
Yeah.
didn't have the money to support it, but only like a moral support, saying, oh,
Mm.
why the F did you do that? Okay, now let's fix it. But
Right.
I think they never fixed anything for me and they never had the money to support. So it was kind of like, so what are you going to do? You'll figure it out. And I
Yeah.
think that was interesting.
Yeah.
Another thing I'm hearing from you is a lot of people say, I want to be an entrepreneur, which I don't
Yeah.
get. In the 80s in the US, entrepreneur was a different word for unemployed. Figuring it out.
I'm gonna remember that. Yeah.
So I think I went to work. I worked for the government. I worked in shops. I managed. I did a lot of things for almost a decade. I worked for other people, and they've taught me unbelievable, amazing lessons.
Mm.
I could have never done what they did. And still to this day, with EO, we meet other entrepreneurs to learn from them,
Yeah.
right? So being in an environment that teaches you. How important do you think it is to go work for someone straight out of college or university, or even if you don't study?
You know, one thing that all my entrepreneurial life I've been struggling with is the fact that I have never had a proper mentor in my earlier days. So I always had to learn the lessons the hard way and trying to figure out stuff myself. So looking at things from that perspective, I think that it's extremely important to have worked for someone else because they can give you concentrated knowledge of how to run business, how to manage people, how to do your finances. You can learn on somebody else's back. And I didn't have that. Like my first job, I worked for 7 months. My second job before I did full time, what I do nowadays, I worked for 4 years. And my boss was in the UK, and we were virtually having a phone call every 2 months or something, just so that I can explain why I'm making so much money for them, kind of thing. So I never had that mentor figure, and many of my friends that I know, they have worked for people that were like by their side. So they have received so much knowledge from those people. So in my opinion, it's very, very helpful. And the version that I went through is the less efficient one in a way. That I
Yeah.
wouldn't change things if I can go back. Don't get me wrong. But I had that, I've experienced that need, that lack of mentorship so much in my days. And actually that feeling got so strong at some point of time. And then I found EO. So EO filled that gap in a way. Then I started looking for a few, maybe a year down the line, I started looking for a mentor again. And there's a mentor cloud or something that, like within the EO, I remember. So
The
I tried
mentorship.
that. Yeah, I tried that. Couldn't find that right person there for myself. And then I started working with consultants and I filled that gap. And now I'm feeling it in a different way.
It's interesting. In 2018, I flew to Dublin for the mentorship summit of EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization, because I had some issues with one of my employees. He was the first employee in the company, and we went from being really good friends, building something together, um, him kind of having his own domain in the company, but things were changing, and we started to move from small businesses to startups to big tech companies to a lot of crypto, a lot of English working content, and he couldn't find his place. And we went from being really good friends to arguing like a married couple. Like we would argue about everything all the time, and the vibe was like, I don't
Yeah.
want to argue anymore. In the mentorship summit, we discussed a lot about the questions we need to ask the mentee.
Mm. Mm.
And when I got back to Israel, the discussion we had, the understanding was there was no more room for him in the company. He's done,
Mm.
the company has outgrown him, or vice versa, and he has
Right.
a lot of skills and abilities that will not be put into good use. I don't have anything to offer. It's not you, it's me. And it's been 4 years, I think. We're really good friends. We have lunch every 3 months. Um, his business is doing really well. He
Mm.
just called me last Tuesday and said, "Hey, have you ever lost a huge client?" All of a sudden, and we had this 30-minute discussion, and I really felt that the mentorship went well. That he
Right.
feels comfortable to call and ask, "Hey, but I remember that. What did you do then? I didn't know."
Mm.
And for me, that
Mm.
was really interesting. And
Yeah.
he was a student in the first class I taught at college, and
Yes.
he just told me a couple of weeks ago he's been invited to teach a class at the same college at the
Wow.
same communication school, and he said that it would be a huge honor for him if I'll do the
Wow.
guest lecture.
Ah,
That's
so
mentorship,
nice,
in my
man.
opinion.
So
I
nice.
think
That's so strong. So strong.
I
Um,
think
I,
yeah.
a few months back, I think I told you that the last time. A few months back, I came to the realization that it's going to be easier for me if I do interviews and like much like what we're doing right now with if I write down some questions that I need the answers for, and instead of reading all the books in the world, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to read them, but instead of trying to search for the answers in the book, to prepare 30 questions and go and ask the most successful people that I know, pretty much. So one of the people that I've done like a few of those already, and one of the people that I asked is a very good friend of mine. entrepreneur himself with 23 companies all over the world, like an amazing guy called Paolo Ruggieri. Like he's Italian. And one of the questions is, which one is the most painful truth that you have learned in business? And his answer was that sometimes the people that you start a company with or start a project with will either stop growing along the way or will decide to grow in a different direction. And you have to accept that. And it's natural that at some point of time, roads split. And this actually really like reminds me of your story, you know. We have to accept
You
that.
know, was straying a little bit from the original idea of the podcast, but I think it will be interesting. Not many people know what I'm going to tell you now.
Okay.
Streetwise is my agency. It was never built as the end goal from day one.
Right.
It had a concept, it had a structure, it had an idea. It was after we lost like $100,000 in a bar, and I realized I'm not going back to the government job I had, and I want to do something else. And the idea was to build a company that doesn't have any rent, doesn't have any employees, doesn't have inventory, and can be done anywhere in the world. And I looked, I checked, I said, okay, consulting. I started the consulting alone. I think today we have employees, we have an office, we have inventory, we have everything you want.
Okay.
But it was always built as a means to an end.
Right.
And the employees knew that this is a jumping through to platform. And that also meant that people will come. Some have stayed a year, 2 years, 4 years. Over the years, when I go to meet my former employees and we talk, it was always amazing to me to see where they landed, what they're doing. It is always amazing to me when they call and say, hey, I'm moving to the next position. Do you mind if I'll give you as a reference? They've already had another job, and they still call me to give that reference.
Nice.
So if Streetways was always a means to an end, it also had to be a means to an end for them. So if they want to build something within the company, they can. If they want to make more money, they can. We now have a manager who needed much more money in order to do something. So we've built the position in a way that now he's making about 30% more than what we planned on his salary, because then that allows him to build something. Okay. It means that when I look around and I say, you know what, they worked for me at the beginning. I had the honor of giving them that chance. And a big part of that also meant that I have to train over and over and over and hire juniors. They're cheap. I can train them. I can teach them. I can mold them a certain way. But then they will leave. And sometimes it might be a bit sad to see them leave, but 2 years down the line, it's unbelievable. And today, seeing where, I don't know, 10, 15 of the best employees we've had, where they are today, is, for me, a huge, that's why I go teaching, that's why I write books.
Yeah. But you're a teacher at heart, right? You're a teacher at heart. Like, this is your mission to an extent, is to help people grow, you know, like so sometimes, like, I describe people like that as the soil in which you can put the seed and the seed would grow. You know, like, you're not the seed himself, you're not the plant itself, but you're the soil that allows to grow. And I have a question regarding to this, because like I'm really curious about it. When you started the company, how often did you do that leap of faith? You know, seeing that you were not, if I understand correctly, you were not having a like step-by-step guide of what we're going to do and where we're going to end, but you are rather trusting the process. Something like one of the values of EO, by the way, trust the process. How often did you have that thing? I don't know what's going to happen, but it just feels right, and I'm just going to keep on pushing.
I think I didn't follow a process. That was one thing. I think, by the way, a key learning for me is overvalue yourself.
Right.
That's
overvalue yourself.
I should have charged double always than what I did in that specific point of time.
Yeah.
Only now I'm realizing that when I'm going more into global keynote speaking, the books, and other things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm seeing that in some cases I'm the cheapest speaker by far. But then I get a result, and they're like, "That was really good, like
Yeah,
top."
yeah, yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, wait, but so don't undersell yourself,
Mm,
and then fill the gap." So in order to what's a brand promise, right? You want to have like, I will charge this amount, okay, but you have a brand promise. I will give you this.
yeah.
This is the gap that most people lack, and I think for me that was easy to over deliver. For me, it was
Mm,
easy to give you that value. I
right.
think, you know, my next book is not ready, and I sold 200 copies for a conference in 60 days.
Dude.
And someone told me, "Why did you do that?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You don't have a book." I said, "You don't need a book. You need to sell it. Now you need a book." So
Yeah,
for me, the sales comes first,
yeah.
then fill the gap. And another important thing for me is I like being with my back against the wall.
Mm, yeah.
Routine is not good for me. I get bored. And that's why I travel a lot. I do different projects. Someone asked me, how are you enjoying your third book, the writing and the editing? I said, I will never do it again until the next time. That's,
Yeah. I'm unique just like anybody else, right?
uh,
Yeah. I had
yeah.
it's it's really like interesting. I mean, I'm sorry for being in a position to be asking the questions, but I can't help myself, man. I'm getting so much value out of this conversation. So,
Go for it, man.
uh, you said that you sold the 60 copies before you had the book ready. In one way, this is how you force yourself to finish the book. Is it like a life hack that you're using to get yourself to do what you otherwise may not struggle but need more motivation, more internal like power to
Yeah, I think I don't like deadlines in a sense, and
do?
for me,
Mm,
a deadline is an agile thing for me sometimes. But what I do get is I get to the deadline and I've done another piece, and then I move the deadline, I do another piece until I feel
right.
it's roughly okay. Then I
Mm,
put the deadline and I finish. Now, it is a life hack for me. I find weird things to call a deadline. So, for example, for the ones watching us now on YouTube, I'm growing my beard until I finish editing my first draft and sending that to like the main editing to my editor
right.
abroad. So I'm growing my beard. Now it's itching, and every time I go anywhere, people are like, "Dude,
What's
what
with the
happened?
beard?
What's this beard?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh shit, I don't want to talk about this again. I'll go home and write." And 10
Oh,
years
nice.
ago, for my first novel, I did that with long hair,
Uh-huh.
and I grew my hair. I think it got to my shoulders. And people would call me on the weekend and say, "Hey, so did you finish?" I said, "No, I'm working on it." And they say, "Okay, you can't be seen with us with that hair, so stay home." And I would sit and write. And it's when you tell the whole world you're writing a
Yeah, yeah.
book, no one cares. But when
Right.
everybody can visually see the
Yes.
book, they
Yeah.
see the beard, they see the book, now there's something to talk about. When it's not tangible, you can't hold it. It doesn't happen sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's it is important to create a boundary that people can feel or see, that they can talk
Right.
about.
Right.
Now, when I cut my hair the first time, I would go to the same bar 5 times a week and drink while writing the first novel. It was about the nightlife of the city of Tel Aviv. So every night I would go out drinking, listen to good stories, meet girls, have a good time, go
Right.
home, drunk, and write. And in the mornings, I would look at what I've written. And every night I would go to the bar, and the bartenders would say, "Hey, are you done? Are you done? Are you done? How's it going? How's it going?" And one day I go in, and my hair is completely shaved off, almost bald.
Everybody knew.
And people are like, "Hey, how's it going? What?" And they look at me like I'm familiar. They've seen me with long hair for a year. They're like, "Dude, what happened?" "Oh, you finished the book. Let's drink." Now they're also
Awesome.
part of that
Awesome.
experience, because a book
Awesome.
is a very lonely project, in
Mm,
my opinion.
yeah.
But you can also say that about your company, even though you have a founder, a partner, a
Yeah.
spouse. Sometimes building businesses is a very lonely thing,
It is.
and it
It
seems like
is.
we're all looking for that mentor, someone to help us.
Mm,
What's a good
mm.
tip you could give a young entrepreneur when they're building and struggling?
It really depends on the personality type, in my opinion, because some people are virtually like feet buried in the ground. And to believe something, they have to see a proof that it's working. You know how it is. Like usually that would be the more technical people, engineers, developers, and so on. And other people are all like head in the sky. This is what I am about. I'm a dreamer. Like I can visualize things long, long before like they become true. You know, and I attended a really interesting. It was actually meditation and breathing techniques from yoga last week or over the weekend. Something that like I'm really curious about because I do meditate for quite a while now. Anyway, so they told us a few principles about life, which are given to humanity from their teacher, whatever. Long story short, one of the principles is that I mean, my English is not too good today. What's the word for like two complete extremes? Is there a word besides extremes? But two ends, the two sides of the coin kind of thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so those, what's the
Opposites?
word? Opposites, opposites. Thank you. Yes. Opposites complement themselves. They don't attract. We have this saying that the opposites attract themselves. But the right way to put it is that the opposites complete themselves together. You cannot have light without darkness, and you cannot have slow without fast. So when building anything, not only a company, you need to have people that are opposites. Doesn't have to be like a partner necessarily, but could be like someone that you're working with. So if you're a really technical guy, you need some business person to sort of dream about stuff and like figure out things that you don't have the sensors to do yourself, because technical people are usually focused on the detail and business people are usually seeing forests where others see trees. So in order to have success, you have to have balance between opposites that complement each other. That's, I think, is extremely, extremely important. Doesn't have to be a partner, as I said. Could be like someone that's working for you. It could be a team. And I've had this discussion with my partner once. We were like every couple, like we're having our ups and downs, right? And he was saying, like sometimes it feels like you behave like you can do whatever you want. And I told him, like actually the way that I see it is that I can set up the company the way that I want. You know, I can, if there is a function that usually belongs to the CEO by the book, but I don't enjoy performing, I have the power and the capacity to outsource that function to someone as I see fit, so that I don't have to do it, because I can be so much more productive doing the things that I can. For instance, I really suck at numbers in general and Excel sheets. I I've tried like hundreds of times. I sit in front of the Excel sheet and it's just buffering. Like I don't produce crap, nothing. At the same time, if I have to like prepare for a presentation or something, it just happens. Like my whole self operates in a way that I can produce that output without any effort. So being an entrepreneur means that you can set the whole setup in a way that you can do what you are most productive at. And that's the beauty of it. Like,
You know, I don't know if you've seen my calling card or my signature on my email. It doesn't say CEO. I don't believe I'm CEO.
mm,
It's kind of a weird. I
Yeah.
call it chief everything officer. Right, you have to
Yeah.
solve all the problems for everyone, and then take care of the invoices and the
Yeah.
government and stuff. So on my calling card it says chief of happiness because it makes me laugh. Which is interesting to see how other people outsourcing that process is one thing. Let me ask you about a personal aspect.
Sure.
A lot of people are now talking about hustle hard, working all the
Right.
time and stuff. I remember years where I only worked. I loved it. I would meet friends a lot, but I didn't do anything except maybe work, go for 2 hours to meet my friends, go back. I got a lot of experiences, maybe in terms of professional experiences.
Mm.
But how do you look at that opposites between not work-life balance, but between accumulating experiences in your life, traveling, meeting, doing other things? How important is that for you today in comparison to when you were young?
That's a very good question, man. Oh boy. Um, Ray Dalio said, like, I saw a post by Ray Dalio on my feed some time ago. And the post was saying, know your boundaries and exist on the far side of fair. Know your boundaries and exist on the far side of fair. And this is, in my think, the strategy that I've been using all my life. Like being an extrovert, being a business guy, like I enjoy life in general. I try to enjoy life in general, and I've been taught by my granddad, God bless his soul. He was telling me, like grab from life as much as you can. So sometimes when I would feel like producing output, I would get the muse, and I want to write a strategy. I want to write a plan how we are going to achieve results, etc., etc. This will be the time where I will focus on working, and everybody can tell that I'm in one of those phases. You know, but you cannot sip out of an empty cup at the same time. Like the cup has to be full in order for you to be able to sip out of it. So I try to take from life as much as I need in order to fill myself, because if I was a cup, right, so that I can give that energy to other people. I believe, I don't know if it's human design or some other philosophy, but some people generate energy. Other people's don't have that capacity, just because we're different types of personalities, right? So I'm one of those people that generates energy, and in order for people that I have surrounded myself with, because we do tend to surround naturally, like people like me and you, we tend to surround ourselves with people from the different kinds. Opposites complement each other. So
It
those
also
people,
it also has a lot about you and I spoke about it
yeah,
last time. I think it has a lot to do about the ability to give to other people,
yes,
right?
yes, absolutely, absolutely, something which I learned from you, as I told you the last time. In Amsterdam
For me,
2018. Yeah, yeah. The story that I told you about seeing you on stage, and you were telling that story how like you've been in EO for like that many years, and you were expecting to receive stuff, but then you realize that it's actually about giving much more than about taking, which was the first time. I was one of the 100 people in the crowd, right? The first time when I realized the concept, okay, this guy is talking about giving first and then receiving. And all my life I've been doing this the wrong way. I've been trying to generate stuff so I can give back. Maybe this is not how it works. So this is when I started exploring that concept. And uh, yeah, what I was trying to say is that it's important for some people to surround themselves with people that are not being able to generate energy themselves. However, they are very good at using that energy to produce output, to surround themselves with people that can generate that energy, like us, for example, and vice versa, like the same thing. If we have that energy and we are not surrounded with people that can produce output with that energy, what's the point? So the punchline here is the opposites complement each other and cannot exist without being together. And this is how the entrepreneurship life goes, like do complement yourself with your exact opposite. Every coin has two sides, right?
I agree. First of all, thank you for what you said. It's interesting. It's interesting to hear someone tell you how they perceived what you said after like a few years. So that's interesting, and thank you for that.
Pleasure.
It has an impact.
you know what I wanted to say is that at that point of time, I was on a journey of exploring my own self and trying to figure out like the right way of going forward. And it was just, I was at the right time at the right place, and so were you in my context, and that was really powerful. Like it really impacted me a lot.
Imagine if I want to stop doing one-on-one consulting with companies, not because I don't like it, I love it, not because it's not good money, it's amazing money. I believe that if I can talk on a stage to 1,000 people, and that resonates with, I don't know, 100 of them, and they go back to their companies or to their spouses, and that makes an impact. What will it take for me to change 1 million people's lives? That is the idea behind.
Some mathematician can probably give you exact numbers fairly quick.
So if I stop saying about a specific number, but rather I want to do this with as many people as I possibly can, now I have a why.
Why is very important.
And that means that if I don't go out with my friends over the weekend now because I want to finish the book, because I understand it will help a founder, someone on the other side of the world, raise money to build something that will help a third generation, or old people, or people in need, or people or whatever, you are making an impact. That ability, which we started with, of being a salesperson, can only be done or can do good only if you decide to use it for good, right? Same thing as you can be a scammer. You have the same ability.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
choose how you want to do it. For me, at a certain point as well, understanding I have an ability. Now I need to understand how to use it and what is an impact at scale. And this is a big part of why I'm doing this, because meeting entrepreneurs like yourself inspires me. I have about 72 hours after each session I do with the entrepreneurs that I feel alive. I feel that I need to keep pushing. So if I do this twice a week, I'm happy, I'm proud.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Cannot agree more. Cannot agree more. Something that you mentioned is something which recently came into my journey. Like I've always heard this thing about the why, how important why is, but at the same time, I think people that know their whys early in their career are really blessed. My why came to me virtually like a couple of months ago. I had the final version of why we are doing what we're doing. And we came up with my partner with that final version. And it was such an inspiring experience. And people are built in a way where we need to have that why in order to have a constant generator of motivation for us to do stuff. You don't get people to do stuff unless you are being able to tell them why. And I think that's really powerful. Maybe you can write another book. Your fourth book maybe could be about the why.
I think Simon Sinek did a very good start with why. I leave that to him.
Yeah.
I can share with you that my fourth book,
Right.
So this book is called Fuck the Slides, about how to create good presentations that are based on a story. So an interesting story that people would like to hear, and how to do KPIs for storytelling. The next book will be how to create a brand that sits next to you in the board meeting room. And that's my understanding that we are building brands the wrong way. They're not long lasting. They're good for now. They're well designed,
Mm,
but they're not 3D characters like I have in my novels.
right.
So that would be that. Before we wrap up, because I have to finish a draft, any last words? Something you want to tell us before we wrap this really nice, interesting conversation?
Oh man, I'm having so much fun. Um, I don't know, man. This is like I'm gonna quote one of the one of the actually the first person that I interviewed in those interviews that I'm doing right now. And actually, like it would be a pleasure and an honor when you come to Bulgaria to do one with you. That would be so awesome.
Three
Thank you.
weeks, I'm yours. I'm coming.
Awesome. I One of the questions that I ask is about success, and in particular, the measure of success. And I ask him, like he's quite a successful guy, like very different from the person that I am, very different from the environment in which I exist. And I ask him, what is the measure of success? And he says, the measure of success is the quality and the quantity of the free time that you have. And this really made me think. And I really wish that everybody could answer that question for themselves. What's the measure of success? Because that could really give us the answer of what we want to achieve. Because very often when people are doing business, especially entrepreneurs, we're not after an end result. We're after a lifestyle. And it's really important, in my opinion. If you like traveling and like doing presentations and business meetings and la-di-da-di, you can set up your business in that way. And that is the payoff for all the risk that you take as an entrepreneur.
I
So
will.
yeah,
I'll tell you something, and then
yeah.
I have an ask, if
All
that's
right,
okay.
sure.
I go on Zoom meetings, and people ask me, "Hey, Neil, where in the world are you now?" And I've said, "No, I'm at home. I'm happily at home." Every 2 months, I'll travel for 1 month. Over the last 10 days, I took time off everything. Everything. I'm literally
Nice,
having coffee, writing, and running. That's the only
nice.
things I'm doing and that's for me a huge metric of success. But here's my ask of you.
Sure.
We were talking about creation and timeline, deadline, and so on. You have an IT company building websites. Great. My ask of you
Not website.
is share those experiences of what you're learning from those talks.
Right,
Build a website. Answer
right,
all those questions. If you can on video, but if not, even record them and transcribe them and share that project. And every week, interview one person, get
yeah,
their information, get their stuff, and have a website where I can log in and not even log in, but just search for success and get 30 answers of how do you define success. And give me the chance to tap into the minds of some of the people you admire, you
right.
know? So for me, that's sharing what you have. That's giving. So I
That
am
is
getting
giving. Yeah,
something, but I'm also giving that back to a million people.
yeah.
And I think that would be very, very interesting and very, very powerful. By the way, even if you do it in their own native language and then translate,
Right. Yeah, yeah.
oh, I think that'd be interesting.
That was the idea. It's about this thing at its genesis. To allow those to create a website where you can go and get 30. I mean, the many different answers of the same 30 questions. And I use every opportunity because from every interview I there is something which I take, and from every interview there is something that sticks for the rest of my life, like about the way doing business, philosophy about life, and so on. And I spread that wisdom as much as I can because I see that how people perceive it, and there's so much good stuff about it. But listen, I'm going to set this website, and you'll be definitely one of the first people that will find out. They have
Amazing.
access
And
to
if
it
you
as
want
well.
to interview, I'll come and interview for you. I'll be happy to.
Yes, that would be
Um,
awesome.
my friend, thank you very much. It was a
Thank you,
pleasure.
brother.
And I really did enjoy insightful conversation, and it really inspired me to do some more things over this weekend. And my dear friends, thank you for being here and listening and watching, and thank you for the support and the messages. We appreciate it. And go to the website. Are you EO material? Are you interested? And soon our newsletter is going to be live. Take care. Have a great week. Safe travels wherever on the planet you might be, and keep hustling. Ivan, I'll see you soon in Bulgaria. Bye,
Thank
my
you, sir.
friend.
Looking forward. Thank you, everyone. Bye.